Part 2. The whole action takes place in a house on the island, the following summer. Scene: an oval drawing room in white and gold. In the back wall, French windows, through which are seen a terrace with a stone balustrade and light blue faience pots of petunias and scarlet geraniums. Part 2. Act 1, Scene 1. A warm summer morning. The French windows open. Alan is sitting at the writing table making calculations. Judith comes in through the French windows, wearing a short skirt summer dress, her hair in a plait. In one hand she carries her hat, in the other a tennis racket. She stops at the entrance. Alan rises, serious and courteous. Judith, serious but amably. "Why don't you come and play tennis?" Alan, shyly, fighting his emotion. I'm so busy. Didn't you see I left my bicycle facing the oak? Not with its back to the oak? Yes, I did. Well, what does that mean? It means that you want me to come and play tennis. But my work, I have some problems to solve. And your father is a pretty strict master. Do you like him? Yes, I do. He takes such an interest in all of his pupils. He takes an interest in everyone. And everything. Are you coming? You know very well I want to, but I mustn't. I'll ask Papa to give you leave. Don't do that. There'd only be a fuss. I can manage him, you know. What I want, he wants. That must be because you're so hard. Yes, you ought to be too. I'm not of the wolf breed. Then you must be a sheep. Rather that. Tell me, why won't you come and play tennis? You know why. Tell me all the same. The lieutenant don't care a pin about me. But you don't enjoy being with the lieutenant unless I'm there too. So you can watch me being tortured. Am I so cruel? I didn't know that. You know it now. Then I'll have to reform. Because I don't want to be cruel. I don't want to be bad. In your eyes. You're just saying that so as to get to the upper hand of me. I'm your slave already, but you're not satisfied with that. The slave has to be tortured and thrown to the wild beasts. You've already got the other one in your clutches, so what do you want with me then? Let me go my way and you go yours. Are you turning me out? Alan does not answer. All right, I'll go. Being cousins, we're bound to meet now and then, but I won't bother you. Alan sits at the table and goes on with his calculations. Judith, instead of going, gradually approaches him. Don't worry. I'm just going. I only want to see what the quarantine officer's quarters were like. Looks round. White and gold. And a grand piano. A Bechstein. Huh. We're still in the fortress tower, though Papa's been pensioned off. Tower where Mama has lived for 25 years. And we're only there as a favor, too. But your people are rich. Alan, calmly. We aren't rich. So you say. Though as a matter of fact, whatever you wear suits you. Do you hear what I'm saying? Comes closer. Alan, resigned. I hear. Judith, how can you hear when you're adding up, or whatever it is you're doing? I don't hear with my eyes. By the way, have you ever looked at them in the mirror? Get along with you. You despise me, don't you? My dear girl, I am not thinking about you at all. Judith, coming right up to the table. Archimedes doing his sums, while the soldier comes and cuts him down. She stirs his papers with her racket. Don't touch my papers! That's what Archimedes said too. You're imagining things, you know. You think I can't live without you? Why can't you leave me in peace? Be polite. And I'll help you with your exam. You? Yes, I know the examiners. Alan, severely. What of it? Don't you realize one has to be on good terms with one's instructors? You mean father and the lieutenant, and the colonel. You mean that under your protection I shouldn't have to work? You are a bad translator of a bad original. You ought to be ashamed, I am, of your behavior and my own. I'm ashamed of having listened to you. Why don't you go away? Because I know you value my company. Yes, your way always leads under my window. You always have something that takes you to town by the same boat as me. You can't go out sailing without having me to man the foresail. Alan, bashfully. That's not the way for a young girl to talk. Do you think I am a child? Sometimes you're a good child, and sometimes a wicked woman. You seem to have chosen me as your sheep. You all were sheep. That's why I'm going to protect you. Alan, rising. The wolf makes a jolly bad shepherd. You want to eat me, that's the truth of the matter. You want to pledge your pretty eyes so as to redeem my head for yourself. Oh. Have you looked at my eyes? I didn't think you were as bold as that. Alan gathers up his papers and starts to go out right. Judith stands in front of the door. Alan, get out of my way, or... If only you were a boy, You're just a girl. So what? Alan, if you had a spark of pride, you'd have gone. So you can consider yourself thrown out. I'll pay you out for this. I'm sure of that. Judith, as she goes, furiously, I'll pay you out! Exit Judith, back. Enter Kurt, left. Kurt. Where are you off to, Alan? Oh, is that you? Kurt. Who made such a violent exit that it made the bushes shake? That was Judith. She is rather violent, but a nice girl. When a girl is ill-natured and crude, she's always called a nice girl. You shouldn't be so insolent, Alan. Don't you like your relatives? I like Uncle Edgar. Kurt. Yes, he has many good points. And your other instructors? The lieutenant, for example? He's so moody. Sometimes I think he has a down with me. Nonsense. You're always thinking things about people. Don't brood. Just do your own job properly and leave others to do theirs. Yes, I do, but I don't get any peace. They drag one in just like the cuttlefish down by the jetty. They don't bite, they just stir up an eddy that sucks one in. Kurt, kindly. I think you're a bit given to melancholy. Don't you like being here with me? Is there something you miss? Alan, I've never had such a good time, but there's something here that chokes me. Here? By the sea? Don't you like the sea? Yes, the open sea. But on this shore there's nothing but goosegrass, cuttlefish, jellyfish, and stingers, or whatever they're called. You shouldn't stay indoors so much. Go out and play tennis. It doesn't amuse me. You're angry with Judith, aren't you? Judith? You're so critical of people. You shouldn't be. It makes one lonely. I'm not critical. But I feel as if I'm at the bottom of a woodpile, waiting my turn to be put on the fire. I'm weighed down by all that's on top of me. Kurt. Wait till your turn comes. The pile's diminishing. Yes, but so slowly, oh so slowly, while I lie there rotting. It's not easy to be young. And yet people envy you. Do they? Would you like to change places with me? No, thank you. Do you know what's hardest of all? To hold one's tongue when one's elders are talking rot. When I know more about the subject than they do, and yet have to keep my mouth shut. Oh, I beg your pardon. I wasn't counting you as one of the elders. Kurt. But why not? Alan. Perhaps because we have really only just got to know one another. Kurt. And in the process you formed a different opinion of me. Yes. I suppose during the years we were apart you didn't always feel very kindly towards me. No. Did you ever see a picture of me? Only one, and that was most unflattering. And old? Yes. 10 years ago my hair turned grey in a single night. Now it has changed back of its own accord. Let's talk about something else. Ah, here comes your aunt, my cousin. Alan, what do you think of her? I'd rather not say. Then I won't ask. Enter Alice in a light summer dress, carrying a parasol. Alice. Good morning, Kurt. Her look indicates that Alan is to go. Kurt to Alan. You had better go. Alan goes outright. Alice sits on the sofa left, with Kurt on a chair beside her. He's coming in a moment. So you needn't feel embarrassed. Why should I? With your strict principles in regard to myself. Yes. Yes, well, I forgot myself once, when I saw you as the liberator, but you kept your presence of mind. So we have a right to forget what never was. Forget it, then. However, I don't think he has forgotten. Do you mean that night he fell down with a heart attack? And you rejoiced too soon, thinking he was dead? Yes. Since then he's been quite himself again, but when he stopped drinking he learnt to hold his tongue. And now he's terrifying. He's up to something I can't grasp. Alice, your husband is a good-natured ass who does me endless favors. Beware of his favors. I know them. Oh, really? So he's hoodwinked you too. Don't you see the danger? Aren't you aware of the traps? No. Then you're doomed to destruction. Heaven preserve us. You see? Here I am watching ruin creep up on you like a cat. I point it out, but you can't see it. Alan, with his unbiased view, can't see it either. For that matter, he doesn't see anything but Judith. And surely that's a guarantee of good relations. Do you know Judith? A coquettish little thing in pigtails and rather too short skirts. Quite. But I saw her in a long skirt the other day. And then she was a young lady. Not so young either, with her hair up. She is slightly precocious, I admit. Alice. And she's playing with Alan. Kurt. No harm in that. So long as it is play. I see. That's permitted. Kurt. Edgar will be here in a moment. He will sit in the easy chair. He has such a passion for it, he could steal it. Alice. He shall have it. Let him sit over there, and we'll stay here. And while he's talking about trivial matters, I'll interpret for you. Oh, you're too cautious, dear Alice. What could I have to fear so long as I run the quarantine station efficiently and behave properly otherwise? You pin your faith in justice and honor and all that. Yes. Experience has taught me to. Alice. Once I pinned my faith in just the opposite. That cost me dear. Here he comes. I've never seen you frightened before. My courage was only unawareness of the danger. The danger? He'll begin to frighten me soon. Oh, if only I could. Here he is. Enter the captain, back, wearing a buttoned-up black morning coat and officer's cap, and carrying a silver-crooked cane. He greets them with a nod, crosses the room, and sits in the easy chair. Alice to Kurt. Let him speak first. The captain. This is a superb chair you have, my dear Kurt. Really superb. You shall have it as a present, if you will accept it. I didn't mean that. That's what I mean. Just think of all I've had from you. What rot. And sitting here I get a view of the whole island, of all the walks. I can see all the people in their verandas, all the ships at sea coming in and going out. You certainly have hit on the best bit of this island, which is by no means one of the Isles of the Blessed. Yes, it's known as Little Hell. And here Kurt has built himself a paradise. Without Eve, of course, for when she came, that was the end of paradise. By the way, did you know this was once a royal hunting lodge? So I've heard. You live royally, but shame to say you have me to thank for it. Alice to Kurt. You see, now he wants to get you in his clutches. Kurt. I have so much to thank you for. Oh, nonsense. Listen, did you get those cases of wine? Yes. Are you satisfied? More than satisfied. Please give your wine merchant my compliments and tell him so. He always provides first-class stuff. Alice to Kurt. At second-class prices, and you have to pay the difference. What did you say, Alice? Nothing. Yes. When this quarantine station was established, I thought of applying for the post, and to that end made a study of quarantine systems. Alice to Kurt. That's a lie. The captain, boastfully. The archaic ideas of quarantine held by the authorities were not shared by me. I, in fact, was on the side of the Neptunists, as we called them, because they favored the water method. I beg your pardon. I remember very well that it was I who preached water on one occasion, and you fire. Did I? What rot! Alice, loudly. Yes, I remember that too. You do? Kurt. I remember it all more clearly because... The captain, cutting him short. Well, that may be, but it makes no odds. In any case, we have now reached the point when a new state of affairs... Kurt tries to break in. Don't interrupt! A new state of affairs has arisen, and the quarantine system is about to take a giant step forward. Kurt. Apropos, do you know who it is who writes those silly articles in the newspaper? The captain, getting red. I don't know. But why do you call them silly? Alice to Kurt. Take care. It was he who wrote them. Well, shall we say, not very intelligent. You're no judge of that. Alice. Do you mean to quarrel? Kurt. Oh, no. The captain. It's hard to keep peace here on the island, but we ought to set a good example. Kurt. Yes. Now, can you explain this to me? When I came here, I made friends at once with all the officials and was on confident terms with the lawyer, as confidential, that's to say, as one can be in our lifetime. Well, after a time, it was just after you got well again, one and then another began to cold shoulder me. And yesterday the lawyer cut me on the promenade. I can't tell you how hurt I was. The captain is silent. Have you noticed any coldness towards yourself? The captain. No. On the contrary. Alice to Kurt. Don't you realize he has stolen your friends? Kurt to the captain. I wondered if it could be due to that new issue of shares I refused to have anything to do with. The captain. No. But can you tell me why you wouldn't subscribe? Because I'd already put my small savings into your soda factory. And also because a new issue means that the old shares are doing badly. The captain, irreverently. That's a superb lamp you have. Where on earth did you get it? In the town, of course. Alice to Kurt. Keep an eye on your lamp, Kurt. Kurt, to the captain. You mustn't think I'm ungrateful or haven't confidence in you, Edgar. Well, it doesn't show much confidence when you want to back out of a business you helped to start. My dear fellow, common prudence requires one to save oneself and what one has, while there's still time. Save? Is there danger pending? Do they mean to rob you? Why put it so crudely? Weren't you pleased when I helped you to invest your capital at 6%? Yes, I was grateful too. You are not grateful. It is not in your nature to be, but you can't help that. Alice to Kurt. Listen to him. Kurt. There are plenty of shortcomings in my nature, and my fight against them is pretty unsuccessful, but I do recognize obligations.
Show it then.
Puts out his hand and picks up a newspaper. Look. What's this? An announcement. Death of the medical superintendent. Alice to Kurt. He's already speculating on the corpse. The captain, as if to himself. This will bring about certain changes. Kurt. In what respect? The captain, rising. We shall soon see. Alice to the captain. Where are you going? The captain. I think I'd better go into town. He catches sight of an envelope on the writing table, picks it up as if unconsciously, reads the address, and puts it back. Excuse me for being so absent-minded. Kurt. No harm in that. The captain. Here's Alan's geometry set. Where is the boy? He's out playing with the girls. That great boy? I don't like it. And Judith ought not to run about like that. You keep an eye on your young gentleman, and I'll look after my young lady. Passing the piano, he strikes a few tones. Superb tone, this instrument. Steinbeck, eh? Beckstein. Yes, you're well off, Kurt. Thanks to me, who brought you here. Alice to Kurt. That's a lie. He tried to prevent you from coming. Goodbye for the moment. I'll take the next boat. On his way out, he examines the pictures on the walls. Exit. Alice. Well? Well? I don't understand yet what he's scheming. But tell me one thing. That envelope he looked at. Who was the letter from? I'm sorry to say it was my one secret. And he smelt it out. You see, he's a wizard, as I told you before. Is anything printed on the envelope? Yes, it says Electors' Association. Then he's guessed your secret. I understand you want to get into Parliament. And now you have to watch him getting it instead. Has he ever thought of that? No, but he's thinking of it now. I read it in his face while he was looking at the envelope. Is that why he's going to town? No. He made that decision when he saw the obituary. What has he got to gain by the death of the medical officer? You may well ask. Perhaps he was an enemy who got in the way of all of his schemes. If he is as monstrous as you say, one has good reason to fear him. Didn't you see how he wanted to get you into his clutches and tie your hands, on the grounds of obligations which don't exist? For instance, he did not get you the post. On the contrary, he tried to prevent you from getting it. He's a man-eater, an insect, a woodworm who will devour you internally, so that one day you're as hollow as a rotten pine tree. He hates you, though he's bound to you by the memories of your early friendship. Kurt. How sharp-witted you become when you hate. Alice. How dull-witted one is when one loves. Blind and dull. Don't say that. Do you know what's meant by a vampire? Well, it's the soul of a dead person looking for a body to live in as a parasite. Edgar has been dead ever since that fall of his. He has no interests of his own, no personality, no initiative. But if only he can get hold of somebody, he clings to him, puts out his suckers, and begins to grow and bloom. Now he's making a set at you. If he comes too close, I'll shake him off. Shake off a burr! You'll see. Listen. Do you know why he doesn't want Judith and Alan to play together? He's afraid their feelings will run away with them, I suppose. Not at all. He wants to marry Judith off. To the Colonel. That old widower? Yes. How horrible. And Judith? If she could have the General, who is 80, she'd take him so as to spite the Colonel, who is 60. To crush, you see, that's her object in life. Trample and crush, that's the password of that family. Judith? That glorious, proud young beauty? Yes, we all know about that. May I sit here and write a letter? Kurt, tidying the writing table. By all means. Alice takes off her gloves and sits at the writing table. Now I'll try the art of war. I failed once when I intended to slay my dragon, but now I've learned how it's done. You know you have to load before you shoot. Yes. And with ball cartridges too. Kurt goes out slowly right. Alice ponders, then writes. Alan rushes in without noticing Alice, and throws himself full length on the sofa, sobbing into a lace handkerchief. Alice watches him for a moment, then rises up and approaches the sofa. Gently. Alan? Alan sits up, embarrassed, and hides the handkerchief behind his back. Gently, motherly, with real emotion. You mustn't be afraid of me, Alan. I'm no danger to you. What's the matter? Are you ill? Yes. In what way? I don't know. Have you got a headache? No. In your heart? Pain? Yes. Pain. Pain as if your heart were melting away. And dragging. How do you know? And then you want to die. You wish you were dead, so it's all so grim. And you can only think of one thing. One person. But when two are thinking of the same person, then sorrow is heavy for one of them. Alan forgets himself and fingers the handkerchief. This is the sickness no one can cure. You cannot eat. You do not want to drink. You only want to weep. And how bitterly one does weep. Out in the woods for choice, where no one can see you, for people laugh at this sorrow. Cruel people. What do you want of her? Nothing. You don't want to kiss her lips, for you think if you did, you would die. You feel as if death were stealing on you when your thoughts fly to her. And it is death, my child, the death which gives life. But you don't understand that yet. There's a scent of violets. Goes up to Alan and takes the handkerchief gently away. It is she. Everywhere she and only she. Alan cannot do otherwise than hide his face in Alice's arms. Poor boy. Poor boy, oh, how it hurts. She dries his tears with the handkerchief. There. Cry then. That eases the heart. But now get up, Alan, and be a man, or she won't look at you. That cruel girl who isn't cruel. Has she been tormenting you? With the lieutenant? Listen, my boy. You must make friends with the lieutenant, so that you can talk about her together. That's generally some comfort, at least. I don't want to see the lieutenant. Listen, little boy. It won't be long before the lieutenant seeks you out so as to talk about her. Because... Alan looks up with a ray of hope. Well, shall I be kind and tell you? Alan nods. He is just as unhappy as you are. Alan, joyfully. Is he? Yes, truly. And he needs someone to confide in when Judith hurts him. You seem to be rejoicing rather soon. Alan, doesn't she want the lieutenant? She doesn't want you either, my dear boy. What she wants is the colonel. Alan grows depressed again. Oh, raining again, is it? But you can't have the handkerchief, because Judith is careful of her possessions and likes her dozen complete. Alan looks crestfallen. Yes, you see, that's how Judith is. Now sit there, while I write another letter, and you can do an errand for me. She goes to the writing table and writes. The lieutenant enters back. He is melancholy, but without looking at all comical. He does not notice Alice, but makes straight for Alan. The lieutenant. "Cadet!" Alan rises and stands to attention. "Do sit down." Alice watches them. The lieutenant goes out and sits beside Alan. He sighs, takes out a handkerchief like the other one, and mops his brow. Alan surveys the handkerchief enviously. The lieutenant surveys Alan sorrowfully. Alice coughs. The lieutenant springs to attention. Alice. "Do sit down." The lieutenant. "I beg your pardon, madam." "Don't mention it. Please, sit down and keep the cadet company. He feels rather deserted here on the island." She writes. The lieutenant, disconcerted, converses in a low tone with Alan. "Frightfully hot, isn't it?" Rather. "Have you finished the 6th book yet?" "I was just working on the last proposition." "Bit of a teaser, that one." "Have you been playing tennis today?" No. The sun was too hot." The lieutenant, in torment, but still in no way comic. "Yes. It's frightfully hot today." "Yes. Very hot indeed." "Have you been out sailing today?" "No, I haven't found anyone to act as a crew." Would you trust me to do it?" Alan, respectfully as before. "That would be too great an honor for me, Lieutenant." Not at all, not at all. Do you think the wind will be good today? Round noon? That's the only time I'm free." Alan, slyly. "At noon the wind drops. And at that time, Miss Judith has her lesson." The lieutenant, crestfallen. "I see. Do you think..." Alice. "Would either of you young gentlemen care to take a letter from me?" Alan and the lieutenant look at one another suspiciously. "To Miss Judith?" Alan and the lieutenant rise simultaneously and approach Alice, although with a certain dignity to conceal their feelings. "Both of you? Well, it's all the more certain of being delivered." Hands the letter to the lieutenant. "Now, Lieutenant, may I have that handkerchief? My daughter is careful of her linen. She has a touch of meanness in her character. I don't want to laugh at you, but you shouldn't make yourself ridiculous without good cause. And the colonel doesn't want to be Othello." Takes the handkerchief. "Off with you now, young men, and try to hide your feelings as best you can." The lieutenant bows and goes out, followed by Alan. "Alan!" Alan reluctantly stops in the doorway. "Yes, Aunt?" "Stay here. If you don't want to do yourself more harm than you can stand." "Yes, but he's going." "Let him burn his fingers." "But you take care." "I don't want to take care." "Then it will end in a cry, and I shall have the bother of comforting you." "I want to go." "Go then. But if you come back, young madcap, I shall have the right to laugh at you." Alan hurries after the lieutenant. Alice writes once more. Enter Kurt. Kurt. "Alice, I've had an anonymous letter which worries me. Have you noticed that since he's stopped wearing his uniform, Edgar has become another person? I never would have believed that a coat could make such a difference." "You haven't answered my question." "It wasn't a question. It was a piece of information." "What are you afraid of?" "Everything. He went to town. His journeys to town always bring about something fearful. But I can't do anything, because I don't know from which quarter the attack will start." Alice folds up her letter. "We must see if I can't guess." "Are you going to help me then?" "Yes, but only as far as my interests allow. Mine. That's to say, my children's. I realize that." Alice, listen. How still it is. Nature, the sea, everything. Alice, but behind the stillness I hear voices. Murmurs, cries. Hush. I hear something too. No, it was only the seagulls. Alice. But I hear something else. And now I'm going to the post. Scene 2. Alan is sitting at the writing table, working. Judith is standing in the doorway, wearing a tennis hat and holding the handlebars of a bicycle. Judith. May I borrow your spanner? Alan, without looking up. No, you mayn't. You're being rude, now that I'm running after you. Alan, not crossly. I'm not being anything. But I want to be left in peace. Judith, advancing. Alan. Well, what is it? You mustn't be angry with me. I'm not. Shake hands on it. Alan, gently. I don't want to shake hands. But I'm not angry. What did you want with me, really? You're so stupid. That may well be. You think I'm just horrid. No, I think you're nice too. You can be nice. Well, it's not my fault that you and the lieutenant go and cry in the woods. Why do you cry? Tell me. Alan is embarrassed. Tell me. I never cry. And why are you such good friends now? What do you talk about when you're walking arm in arm? Alan has no answer. Alan, soon you will see what I am, and that I can strike a blow for anyone I care about. And one piece of advice I must give you, although I don't want to tell tales. Be prepared. What for? For trouble. From what quarter? The quarter you least expect. I'm pretty well used to trouble. I haven't had a very pleasant life. What's brewing now? Judith, pensively. You poor boy. Give me your hand. Look at me. Don't you dare look at me? Alan hastens out, left to hide his emotion. Enter the lieutenant, back. The lieutenant.
Excuse me, I thought the cadet...
Listen, lieutenant. Will you be my friend and confidant?
If you will do me that honor.
Well, in a word, don't give Alan up when the disaster comes.
What disaster?
You'll soon see. Perhaps today. Do you like Alan?
That young man is my best pupil, and I value him personally, too, for his strength of character. Yes, life has moments when that's needed. Strength to bear, to endure. In a word, to suffer.
That was more than a word, what you said. However, you approve of Alan.
Yes.
Go and find him, and keep him company.
That's what I came for. That and nothing else. My visit had no other purpose.
I hadn't imagined anything, in the way you mean. Pointing left. Alan went out that way. The lieutenant, going slowly to the door, left.
Yes, I'll do that.
Please do. Exit the lieutenant, left. Enter Alice, back. Alice. What are you doing here? Judith. I wanted to borrow a spanner. Will you listen to me for a moment? Judith. Of course I will. Alice sits on the sofa. Judith remains standing. But say what you have to quickly. I don't like long lectures. Lectures? Very well. Put your hair up and wear long skirts. Why? Because you're no longer a child, and you're too young to need to make out that you're younger than you are. What does this mean? That you're old enough to be married? and your way of dressing shocks people. Judith. Then I'll do it. So you've understood? Yes, of course. And we're agreed? Absolutely. On all points. Even on the sorest. And at the same time, will you stop playing about with Alan? This is to be serious, then? Yes. Then we better begin at once. She puts down the handlebars, lets down her bicycling skirt, and twists her plait up into a knot, which she fashions with a hairpin taken from her mother's hair. Alice. One does not do one's toilet in other people's drawing rooms. Judith. Am I all right like this? Then I'm ready. Now, come who dares. Alice. Now at least you look decent. And now, leave Alan in peace. I don't understand what you mean by that. Alice. Don't you see how he's suffering? Yes. I think I have noticed it, but I don't know why. I'm not suffering. That's your strength. But wait a little. Oh yes, one day you'll get to know well enough. Go home now, and don't forget you're wearing a long skirt. Must one walk differently then? Try to. Judith, trying to walk like a lady. Oh, I have fetters on my feet. I'm imprisoned. I can no longer run. Alice. No, child. The walking begins. The slow way towards the unknown, which one knows already and yet must pretend not to know. Shorter steps and slower, much slower. Children's shoes must go and you must have boots, Judith. You don't remember when you gave up wearing baby socks and had shoes. But I remember. I shall never be able to stand this. All the same, you must. Judith goes up to her mother and kisses her lightly on the cheek. Goodbye. She goes out in a dignified manner like a lady, forgetting the handlebars. Enter Kurt, right. Kurt. Are you here already? Yes. Has he come back yet? Yes. What like? In dress uniform. So he has been at the colonel's. 2 orders on his breast. 2? I knew he was to get the Order of the Sword when he retired. What's the other one? I don't know. But it's a white cross inside of a red one. Portuguese in that case. Let's think. Didn't his newspaper articles describe quarantine stations in Portuguese harbors? Yes, so far as I remember. And has he ever been to Portugal? Never. But I have been there. You shouldn't be so communicative. His hearing is very acute and he has excellent memory. Don't you think it was Judith who got him his decoration? No, really, Kurt. There are limits. Rises. And you have overstepped them. Are we to bicker now? Depends on you. Don't interfere with my interests. Kurt, if they cross mine, I have to interfere with them. Even if with a very cautious hand. Here he comes. It is now that it will happen. What will happen? You'll see. May it be an attack, then, for this state of siege has got on my nerves. Alice. Quick now. You sit here on this side. He'll take the easy chair, of course, and I can prompt you. Enter the captain, back, in full dress uniform, with the Order of the Sword and the Portuguese Order of Christ. The captain. Good morning. So this is the rendezvous. Alice. You're tired. Sit down. The captain, contrary to expectation, sits on the sofa, left. Make yourself comfortable. It's so nice here. You're very kind. Alice to Kurt. Take care. He suspects us. The captain, testily. What's that you said? Alice to Kurt. He's certainly been drinking. No, he hasn't. Well, how have you been amusing yourselves? Alice. And you? Haven't you noticed my orders? No. I thought not. You're jealous. It's usual to congratulate people when they're decorated. We have the honor to do so. We get these things instead of the laurels actresses get. That refers to the wreaths on the wall at home in the tower, which you got from your brother. Oh, stop! And which I've had to kowtow to for 25 years. And which it has taken me 25 years to expose. Have you been seeing my brother? From time to time. Alice is taken back. Silence. Well, Kurt, you're very silent. I'm waiting. Listen, I suppose you've heard the big news? No. Well, it's not very pleasant for me to have to be the one to... Let's have it! The soda factory has gone bust. That's very bad news. I'm all right. I sold out in time. You did wisely. But how do you come out of it? Badly. You've only yourself to blame. You should have sold out in time or have subscribed to the new shares. Then I'd have lost them too. Oh no, because then the company would have stayed on its feet. Not the company, but the board. I regarded the new shares as a collection for the directors. Can that point of view save you? That's the question now. No. I shall have to give up everything. Everything? Even the house and furniture. That's an appalling state of affairs. I've been through worse. That's what happens when amateurs go in for speculation. How can you say that? You know, if I hadn't subscribed, I'd have been boycotted. Further means of livelihood for coast dwellers and sea workers. Philanthropy as national gain. That's what you wrote and had printed. And now you call it speculation. The captain, unmoved. What do you mean to do now? I may have to have an auction. You would do well to. What do you mean? What I said. The fact is, there are going to be certain changes here. Here? On the island? Yes. For instance, your official residence will be exchanged for a simpler one. Indeed. Yes. It is intended to have the quarantine station on the far side of the island by the water. My original idea. I know nothing of that. I don't know your ideas on the subject. However, it's an excellent opportunity for you to get rid of your furniture. Like that, it will scarcely be noticed. The scandal. What? The scandal. Working himself up. For it is a scandal to come to a new place and immediately get oneself into financial difficulties. And it's unpleasant for the relatives, most of all for the relatives. Unpleasant most of all for me. I'll tell you one thing, my dear Kurt. If you hadn't had me on your side in this affair, you would have lost your job. That, too. You find it pretty difficult to be meticulous. There have been criticisms of you in the service. Just criticisms? Well, yes. For you are, in spite of your other admirable qualities, a slacker. Don't interrupt me. You're a terrible slacker. That's marvelous. However, the aforementioned charge is likely to happen pretty quickly, and I want to advise you to have the auction at once, or try to sell privately. Privately? Where could I find a buyer here? Surely you don't mean I'm come to settle myself in among your furniture? That would be a fine story. especially if one considers what happened at one time. What's that? Do you mean what didn't happen? You're very quiet, Alice. What's the matter, old girl? You're not in your usual form. I'm just thinking. Oh, Lord. Thinking, are you? But you have to think quickly, correctly, and clearly if it's to be of any use. Well, think then. 1, 2, 3. You can't do it. Well, then I'll have a shot. Where's Judith? She's somewhere about. Where's Alan? Where's the lieutenant? Well, Kurt, what do you mean to do with Alan now? Do with him? Well, you won't have the means to keep him in the artillery, will you? Perhaps not. You must try and get him into some cheap infantry regiment up in Norland or somewhere. In Norland? Yes. Or else you must make him go in for something practical right away. If I were in your shoes, I'd put him in an office. Why not? Kurt is silent. In these enlightened times. Well, Alice is so unusually silent. Yes, my children, that's the way life's seesaw goes. Now one's on top, looking confidently around, and then one's at bottom, and then one comes up again, and so on. That's how it goes, yes. To Alice. Did you say something? Alice shakes her head. We may expect visitors here in a few days. Distinguished visitors. Well, who? You see? You're interested. Now you can just sit there and guess who's coming. And while you're guessing, you can take this letter and read it once again. Gives her an opened letter. My letter. Opened. Back from the post. The captain, rising. Yes. In my capacity as head of the family and your guardian, I watch over the family's most sacred interests and cut them with an iron hand every attempt to break family ties through a criminal correspondence. Yes. I am not dead, Alice. But don't get angry at this moment, when I am trying to lift us all out of an undeserved humiliation. Undeserved on my part, at least. Alice. Judith! Judith! And Holofernes. Is that to be me? Exit back. Kurt. Who is this man? I don't know. We are beaten. Yes. Without any doubt. Kurt. He stripped me to the bone. But so cunningly that I can't accuse him of anything. Accuse? On the contrary, you're under an obligation to him. Does he know what he's doing? No, I don't believe he does. He obeys his nature and his instincts. And now he seems to be in favor wherever good and bad luck are meted out. Kurt, it must be the colonel who is coming here. Probably. And so Alan must go away. Do you really think so? Yes. Then our ways divide. Alice, preparing to go. For a little while. But we shall meet again. Probably. And you know where? Kurt. Here. You realize that? It's easy. He's going to take over the place and buy the furniture. That's what I believe too. But don't desert me. Not for so slight a cause. Goodbye. Kurt, as Alice goes. Goodbye. Act 2. Scene the same, some weeks later. A cloudy day and rain. Enter Alice and Kurt, back in raincoats, carrying umbrellas. So I've got you here. Kurt, I can't be so cruel as to bid your welcome. In your own home. Oh, why not? I've had the bailiffs in 3 times, and worse. This means nothing to me. Did he send for you? A formal summons. But I don't understand on what authority. Quite. He's not your chief. No, but he has set himself up as king of this island. And if anyone opposes him, he just invokes the colonel's name and they all kowtow. Tell me, is today the colonel's coming? He's expected. But I don't know anything for certain. Do sit down. Kurt, sitting. It's all the same as ever here. Don't think about it. Don't open the wound. Wound? I only find it a little strange. Strange like the man himself. You know, when I first met him in my youth, I ran away from him. But he pursued me, flattered me, offered his help, and bound me. I tried to escape again, but in vain. Now I am his slave. Alice. But why? It's he who's indebted to you, yet you who are under an obligation. After I was ruined, he offered to help Alan with his examination. Alice. That will cost you dear. Does your candidacy for Parliament still hold good? Yes. There's no hitch as far as I can see. Is Alan leaving today? Yes, if I can't prevent it. That was a brief joy. Brief like everything else. Except life itself, which is appallingly long. Yes, that it is. Won't you come and wait in the morning room? Even if these surroundings don't hurt you, they do me. As you wish. I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed that I could die. But I can't alter things. Let's go then, if you like. Besides, somebody's coming. Exeunt Alice and Kurt, left. Enter the captain and Alan, back, both in uniform with capes. The captain. Sit down here, my boy. I want to have a talk with you. The captain sits in the easy chair, and Alan on a chair left. If it wasn't raining today, I should enjoy sitting here, looking out at the sea. Well, you don't want to go, eh? I don't like leaving my father. Your father, yes. He's rather an unfortunate man, and parents seldom know what's best for their children. That's to say that there are exceptions, of course. Tell me, Alan, are you in touch with your mother? Yes, she writes to me sometimes. You know she's your guardian. Oh, yes. Now, Alan, did you know that your mother had given me full authority to act on her behalf? No, I didn't know that. Anyway, you know it now. And consequently, all discussion of your future is at an end. You're going to Norland. See? But I haven't the means. I've seen to that. Then I can only thank you, Uncle. At least you're grateful. Not everybody is. The Colonel, do you know the Colonel? No, I don't. The Captain, emphasizing each syllable. The Colonel is a specially good friend of mine. As you probably know, the Colonel has shown an interest in my family, including my wife's relatives. Through his good offices, the Colonel was able to arrange for the means needed for the completion of your course. Now you know your indebtedness, and your father's indebtedness to the Colonel. Have I made myself clear? Alan nods. Now go and pack your things. The money will be handed to you at the gangway. And so, goodbye, my boy. He rises and holds out one finger for Alan to shake. Exit the captain, right. Alan stands alone, looking miserably round the room. Enter Judith, back, wearing a hooded cape and carrying an umbrella. Apart from this, she is beautifully turned out, in a long skirt with her hair up. Judith. Is it you, Alan? Alan turns and looks Judith over from head to toe. Is it you, Judith? Don't you recognize me? Where have you been all this time? What are you looking at? My long skirt and my hair? You haven't seen this before. Do I look like a woman? Alan turns away. Judith, gravely. What are you doing here? I have been taking my leave. What? Are you going away? I'm being transferred to Norland. To Norland? When do you go? Today. Who arranged this? Your father. I might have known. Walks up and down, stamping her feet. I wish you could be here today. So as to meet the Colonel? What do you know about the Colonel? Must you really go? I have no choice. And now it's what I want myself. Why do you want to go now? I want to get away from here. Out into the world. It's too cramped here. Yes, I understand, Alan. It's unbearable here. People speculate in soda and in human beings. Alan, I, as you know, am a happy sort of person who doesn't suffer. But now I'm beginning to. You? Yes. She presses both her hands to her breast. Oh, how I'm suffering. Oh, what is it? I don't know. I can't breathe. I think I'm dying. Judith! Oh. Is this how it feels? Is it like this? Poor boys. I ought to laugh if I were as cruel as you. It's not cruel. But I don't know any better. You mustn't go. I must. Go then. But give me something to remember. What have I to give you? Judith with deep and genuine feeling. You. No, this I cannot live through. Cries aloud, clasping her breast. I'm suffering. I'm suffering. What have you done to me? I don't want to live any longer. Alan, don't go. Not alone. We'll go together. And we'll take the little cutter, the little white one, and sail out to sea. But with the sheet made fast, there's a splendid wind, and then we'll sail until we flounder. Out there, right out where there's no goosegrass and no jellyfish. What do you say? Shall we? But we should have washed the sails yesterday. They should be pure white. I want to see whiteness at that moment. And then you will swim with me in your arms until you grow tired. And then we shall sink. Turns. We'll do it in style. Far more style than the way we're standing here, moping and smuggling letters for father to open and scoff at. Alan! She takes hold of his arms and shakes him. Are you listening? Alan, who has been watching her with his eyes shining. Judith. Judith, why didn't you say this before? I didn't know it. How could I say what I didn't know? And now I must leave you. But it surely is the best and only way. I can't compete with a man who... Don't talk about the Colonel. Isn't it true? It's true, and it's untrue. Can't it just be untrue? Yes, it shall be now, in an hour's time. Alan, will you keep your word? I can wait. I can endure. I can work. Oh, Judith, don't go yet. How long must I wait? A year. One? I'll wait 1,000 years if you don't come then. I'll turn the heavens back to front so the sun comes up in the west. Hush! There's someone coming. Alan, we must part. Hush! Take me in your arms. They embrace. But you mustn't kiss me. Turns her head away. So go now. Go now! Alan puts on his cape. Then they rush into each other's arms so that Judith disappears in the cape, and for one moment they kiss. Alan rushes out, back. Judith throws herself face downwards on the sofa, sobbing. Alan comes in again and falls to his knees beside the sofa. Alan. No. I can't go. I can't leave you now. Judith rising. If you knew how beautiful you are, if you could see yourself. No, a man can't be beautiful. But you, Judith. But you. I see so clearly how when you're kind you seem like another Judith, who is mine. But if you deceive me, I shall die. Judith, I think I'm dying anyhow. Oh, that I could die now, at this very moment when I am happy. Someone's coming. Let them come. I'm not afraid of anything in the whole world now. But I wish you'd take me under your cape. She plays at hiding under his cape, and I would fly with you to Norland. What shall we do in Norland? Join the light infantry? The ones with plumes in their hats? That's so smart and would suit you beautifully. She plays with his hair. He kisses the tips of her fingers, one after the other, and then her boots. What are you doing, you crazy boy? You will make your mouth black, and then I shan't be able to kiss you when you go. Come on, I'll go with you, Alan. No, if you did, I'd be arrested. I'll be arrested with you. They wouldn't let you be. Now we must part. Judith, I shall swim after the steamer, and then you'll jump in and rescue me. And then it will be in the newspaper, and we can get engaged. Shall we do that? You can still joke, can you? One can always cry. Now say goodbye. They fall into one another's arms. Then Alan draws her gently towards the French windows, which are still open, and they embrace outside in the rain. It's raining on you, Judith. What do I care about that? They tear themselves apart. Alan goes. Judith stays in the rain and the wind, which ruffles her hair and her dress as she stands waving her handkerchief. Then she rushes in again and flings herself on the sofa, with her face in her hands. Alice comes in, left, and goes up to Judith. What's the matter? Are you ill? Get up and let me look at you. Judith straightens up. Alice gazes at her. You're not ill. But I'm not going to console you. Exit Alice. Enter the lieutenant back. Judith rises and puts on her hooded cape. Judith. Lieutenant, will you be so kind as to accompany me to the telegraph office? The lieutenant.
If I can be of any service to you, Miss Judith. But I don't know if it's quite correct.
So much the better. That's just the object. For you to compromise me. But without having any illusions. You go first. They go out back. The captain and Alice enter right. He is in undress uniform. He sits in the easy chair. The captain. Call him in. Alice goes to the door, left, and opens it. Then she sits on the sofa. Enter Kurt, left. You want to see me? The captain, amiably, but a trifle patronizingly. Yes, I have several matters of importance to tell you. Sit down. Kurt takes the chair on the left. I am all ears. Well then, you are aware that our quarantine system has been in a parlous state for close of a century, Alice to Kurt. That's the parliamentary candidate speaking. But in accordance with today's unprecedented developments in means of communication, naturally, in every possible respect, the government has been considering a policy of expansion. To this end, the Ministry of Health has appointed inspectors and... Alice to Kurt. He's dictating. You may as well know it sooner or later. I have been appointed as quarantine inspector. Kurt. I congratulate you, and at the same time pay my respects. Our personal relationship, due to our family connections, will remain unchanged. But now to speak of another matter. Your son Alan has, at my request, been transferred to an infantry regiment in Norland, but I don't wish him to be. Your wishes in this matter are subordinate to those of his mother. and since his mother has authorized me to act for her, I have made the aforementioned decision. I admire you. Is that your only reaction in this moment? When you are about to be parted from your son? Have you any really human feelings? You mean I ought to be suffering? Yes. It would please you if I suffered. You want me to have to suffer. Can you suffer? Once I was stricken with illness, you were there, and I can only remember an expression of unfeigned pleasure in your face. Alice, that's not true. Kurt sat at your bedside all night and soothed you when your pangs of conscience became too sharp. But when you recovered, you were ungrateful. The captain, without appearing to hear Alice. Accordingly, Alan is to leave us. Who's to provide the means? I have done so already. That is to say, we have a syndicate, which interests itself in the young man's future. Syndicate? Yes. And so that you may see that it's all in order, you can take a look at these lists. He hands Kurt some papers. Lists? Why, these are begging lists. Call them what you like. Have you been begging for my son? More ingratitude. An ungrateful person is the heaviest burden the earth has to bear. Now I'm done for socially. And my candidature will come to nothing. What candidature? Why, for Parliament. Surely you never dreamt of that. Particularly as you have had a notion that I, as an older resident, intended to propose myself, whom you appear to have underrated. Well, so that's finished. That too. It doesn't seem to worry you much. Now that you've taken everything. Do you want anything else? Have you anything else? And have you anything to reproach me with? In fact, nothing. Everything has been done correctly and lawfully, as between honest citizens and daily life. You say that in a tone of resignation I would call cynical. But your whole nature has a cynical bent, my dear Kurt. And therefore, at moments, I might be tempted to share Alice's opinion of you. That you are a hypocrite of the first rank. Is that Alice's opinion? Alice to Kurt. It was once. But it isn't any longer. For to bear what you have borne takes sheer heroism, or something else. I think the discussion may now be considered closed. Go and say goodbye to Alan, Kurt. He's taking the next boat. Kurt, rising. So soon? Ah, well, I've been through worse. Yes. You say that so often I begin to wonder what you were up to in America. Up to? I was just dogged by misfortune. And it is the indisputable right of every human being to meet with misfortune. There are self-induced misfortunes. Was it that kind? Kurt, isn't that a question of conscience? Have you got a conscience? There are wolves and there are sheep. It's no honor to be a man to be a sheep. But I'd rather be that than a wolf. Don't you know the old truth that everyone shapes his own destiny? Is it a truth? And don't you know that one's own strength... Yes, I do know that. Since the night when your own strength betrayed you, Captain, raising his voice. A deserving man like yours, truly. Yes. Look at me. I have striven for 50 years against a whole world. But I have in the end won the game through perseverance, attention to duty, energy, and integrity. Alice, you should let others say that. The others don't because they're jealous. However, we're expecting visitors here. Today my daughter Judith is to meet her fiancé. Where is Judith? She's out. In the rain? Kurt, perhaps I might go now? No. You stay. Is Judith dressed? Respectably? Yes, she'll do. Has the colonel said for certain that he is coming? The captain, rising. Yes. That's to say, he's going to arrive and take us by surprise, as it were. I'm expecting his telegram at any moment. Going right. Back soon. Exit the captain. Alice. There you have the man. Is he human? When you asked me that before, I said he wasn't. Now I believe him to be one of the commonest types that possesses the earth. Perhaps we're a bit like that ourselves. Profiting by other people. Opportunists. He has eaten you and yours alive. And you defend him? I've been through worse. But this man-eater has left my soul untouched. That he could not devour. What is this worse you've been through? You ask that? Are you being rude? No. I don't want to be so. Never ask that again. Enter the captain right. The telegram was there already. Read it, please, Alice. My sight is so bad. Sits down heavily in the easy chair. Read it! You needn't go, Kurt. Alice, having read it quickly to herself, shows consternation. Well, aren't you pleased? Alice stares silently at the captain. Who is it from? It's from the colonel. You don't say! Well, what does he say? He says this. In view of Miss Judith's impertinent telephone message, I regard our relations as broken off, for good. The captain, turning pale. This is Judith. And here is Holferness. What are you, then? You will soon see. This is your doing. No. This is your doing! No! The captain tries to rise and draw his sword, but has a stroke and falls back into his chair. Now you got what you deserve. The captain, whimpering senilely. Don't be angry with me. I'm very ill. Are you? I'm glad to hear it. Let's carry him to the bed. No, I won't touch him. She rings the bell. The captain, as before. Don't be angry with me. To Kurt. Look after my children. That's rich. I'm to provide for his children when he has stolen mine. What self-deception. Look after my children. He continues to babble incoherently. At last his tongue is stayed. He can brag no more, lie no more, wound no more. You, Kurt, who believe in God, thank him for me. Thank him for freeing me from the tower, from the wolf, from the vampire. Don't, Alice. Alice, in the captain's face. Where's your own strength now, eh? And your energy? The captain, speechless, spits in her face. If you can still spit venom, viper, I'll tear your tongue out of your throat. She gives him a blow on the ear. The head is off. Oh, Judith, glorious girl, whom I bore like a vengeance beneath my heart, you have set us free, all of us. If you have any more heads, Hydra, we'll take them too. She pulls his beard. So there is justice on earth after all. Sometimes I've dreamt of it, but I've never believed it. Kurt, ask God to forgive me for having misjudged him. Oh, justice exists. Now I'll become a sheep too. Tell him that, Kurt. A little good fortune makes us better. It's misfortune that turns us into wolves. Enter the lieutenant, back. The captain has had a stroke. Please help us wheel the chair out.
Madam?
What is it?
Well, Miss Judith.
Help us here first. You can talk about Judith afterwards. The lieutenant wheels the chair out, right. Out with the carcass. Out with it and throw everything open. The place must be aired. She throws open the French windows. Outside it has cleared. Kurt, are you going to abandon him? There's no need for me to lay out a decaying animal. Skinners or scavengers can take a look after him. A garden plot is too nice a place to receive that wheelbarrow of filth. Now I'm going to bathe myself. To wash off all this dirt if I can ever be clean again. Judith is seen outside by the balustrade, bareheaded, waving her handkerchief towards the sea. Kurt, going out back. Who's that? Judith? Judith! Enter Judith. Judith, crying aloud. He is gone. Kurt. Who? Alan has gone. Without saying goodbye. We said goodbye. And he sent messages to you, Uncle. Alice. Was that how it was? Judith throws herself into Kurt's arms. He is gone. He'll come back, dear child. Alice. Or we'll follow him. Kurt, pointing to the door right. And leave him? What would people... Alice. People? Puh. Judith, come and embrace me. Judith goes up to Alice, who kisses her on the forehead. Do you want to follow him? Need you ask? But your father is ill. What do I care about that? That's Judith. Oh, how I love you, Judith. Besides, Papa isn't petty. And he doesn't like being coddled. He has at least got some style, Papa. Yes, in a way. And I don't think he's anxious to see me after that telephone business. But why should he saddle me with an old man? No. Alan. She throws herself into Kurt's arms. I want to go to Alan. She pulls herself away again and rushes out to wave. Kurt follows her and waves too. Alice. To think that flowers can grow out of filth. Enter the lieutenant, right. Well?
Well, Miss Judith...
Is it now so sweet to feel the sound of her name caressing your lips that you forget a dying man?
Yes, but she said...
She? It would be better to call her Judith. But first, what's happening in there?
Oh, in there? It's all over.
Over? Oh God, I thank thee for myself and for all mankind that thou hast delivered us from this evil. Give me your arm. I want to go out and breathe. To breathe. The lieutenant offers his arm. Did he say anything before the end?
Miss Judith's father did say a few words.
What did he say?
He said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Incredible.
Yes, Miss Judith's father was a good and noble man.
Kurt! Enter Kurt. It is over. Do you know what his last words were? No, you don't know. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Can you interpret that? I suppose he meant that he had always done right, and died as one wronged by life. He's sure to get a beautiful funeral oration, and masses of wreaths, from the non-commissioned officers. Yes. A year ago he said something like this. It looks as if life for us were some monstrous joke. Kurt. Do you think he was pulling our legs on his deathbed? No. But now that he's dead, I feel a strange inclination to speak well of him. Well, let's... The lieutenant.
Miss Judith's father was a good and noble man.
Hear, hear. Kurt. They know not what they do. How many times have I not asked you if he knew what he was doing? And you thought he didn't know. So, forgive him. Alice. Riddles, riddles. But feel the peace in the house now. The wonderful peace of death. Wonderful as that solemn unrest when a child is coming into the world. I can hear the silence. I can see the marks on the floor of the easy chair which bore him away. And I feel now that my own life is over. And I am on the way to disillusion. Do you know? It's very strange, but the lieutenant's simple words, and he is a simple person, still echo in my mind. But now they mean something. My husband. The love of my youth. Yes, you may laugh, but he was a good and noble man, in spite of it all. Kurt. In spite of it all. And a brave one, too. How he fought for his own existence and what was his. What anxieties. What humiliations. Which he cancelled out so that he could pass on. He was one who is passed over. And that's the crux of it. Let's go into him. I can't. For while we have been talking here, I've had a vision of him when he was young. I saw him. I can see him now, as he was when he was 20. I must have loved that man. And hated. And hated. Peace be with him. She moves towards the door, right, where she stands still, her hands clasped. Curtain. And that is the end of The Dance of Death, a play in 2 parts by August Strindberg. I hope you liked it. I'm glad you managed to stick through the entirety of it. I don't exactly know how long it is, but I know that it's been a long time reading, so hopefully you managed to stick it out and thought it was an interesting play nonetheless. So I only have a couple more plays before we finish out the season, before I leave back for America, so hopefully you can bear with me all and keep on hanging around, because it is so nice to have an audience to listen to these, instead of just me being in my room screaming at my mattress as it's standing on its end. Anyways, I won't take up any more time of your day, so I'll just say, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to have you back in Brendan Moyer's Playwright Corner. Thank you.